Hi, students of theology and film. My name is Dr. Matthew Anderson, and today this pre-watch lecture is about the movie Black Panther, which has become, it was first a very popular movie, it has been, but again has been re-emphasized because of the tragedy, which you know of, I'm sure, which is the tragic death of Chadwick Boseman, who is the star of Black Panther. Played not only T'Challa in Black Panther, but also Jackie Robinson and James Brown, a very talented actor who died at the age of, I think, 43, just very recently on August 28th. And anyway, it's a tragic event and a sad loss. When you watch the movie, in addition to watching his very fine acting, take a look at the character of Wakanda. What is Wakanda before you begin? It's a mythical place similar to Atlantis in terms of function. In this case, hidden in the very center of Africa, and it provides an ethos or a character for the continent. And it reflects, the characters are widely diverse in terms of language, clothing, art, and so on. You'll see this as you watch the movie, and so reflecting the many, many different cultures of contemporary Africa. It's interesting that Wakanda is a place that's nearly untouched by white colonialism and racism. And in that sense, it's very, very interesting because it provides a kind of a light in the center of Africa, which is different from the typical colonial view of Africa, which was that it was the dark heart of Africa or the dark continent, unknown. In fact, Wakanda is a place of light. So at the very center of Africa, according to this myth of origins, is a place of light, culture, learning, and love. The plot of Black Panther, it follows the death of Wakanda's king, T'Chaka, who only shows up a couple of times in the movie in crucial ways, but still, and his son T'Challa, who is the hero of the movie. T'Challa, on the death of the father, returns to Wakanda to become the king and the Black Panther, the protector of Wakanda. The villain, we'll talk about whether he's actually a villain or a victim, is named Killmonger, who is an American-born but then abandoned child of Wakanda. So if you don't understand a little scene at the very beginning, set in California, don't worry, it's explained later in the movie. And Killmonger returns to challenge T'Challa, and he literally overturns the harmony of the kingdom. By the way, I'm just going to come back. These two characters here, you can look at this film also from many different lenses, through hermeneutical lenses, but a gendered hermeneutical lens, which pays attention to what is masculinity, looks at these two characters, and what is feminism. How are women portrayed in the movie? The general, the spy, the protector, and on and on. So there's a very interesting gender lens in this movie, as well as a lens of Afrocentrism. Afrofuturism. Pay attention to how the creators of the film have combined traditional and unique identifiers of African society, so clothing, other things, with futuristic technology. And again, this is a Marvel movie, so it's not that different from, say, setting something in New York City and then having Iron Man with super technologies that don't actually exist in real life. Very similar in terms of that as a Marvel way of doing things. Theological elements to look for. There are a lot of theological elements I'd like you to keep your eyes open for in this movie. Especially keep an eye in the inauguration. Because at least for me, one of the things that was most striking was the way that there is a ceremonial burial and rebirth that happens in the inauguration, where the king-to-be, after being crowned or inaugurated, not really crowned, but inaugurated, is buried in red sand, where they then have a spirit journey and visit with the ancestors, learn from the ancestors, and then come back. So this idea of ancestor veneration, there's a very strong prayer refrain, praise the ancestors, and the ongoing role of ancestors and of the dead in the lives of the living. The border is much more porous than in many portrayals, Hollywood portrayals of religious traditions. Very strong death and resurrection theme. T'Challa goes through a second, notice later in the movie, he goes through a second kind of a burial, an alternate burial, in this case in snow, where he dies again and is reborn in order to challenge Killmonger. And I would like to point out that despite the Afrocentrism of the movie, T'Challa still follows along this Christ figure paradigm that we've identified in the class and that we'll identify again, where there is a call or a conversion or something. There is a struggle, and sometimes temptations, and then there is a death or a redemption, and then there is a rebirth, a sacrifice, and then a rebirth. And certainly this happens to T'Challa as well. It's a wonderfully beautiful movie. Some more theological themes to watch out for in this movie. The whole movie begins with the creation narrative, which interestingly, so does Wonder Woman, which is another Marvel movie that we often look at in the class as well. The spirit of the panther animates the young ruler. The role of herbalism and of the natural world in the society, which is so technologically advanced, but also in the lives of Black Panther. It is a plant, this particular plant, which is pictured, which brings the spirit of the panther to the rulers. And so society is ultimately guarded by a garden and by nature. So there's this kind of garden of these plants. As in other movies, the subject of intergenerational trauma is a spiritual subject. So keep an eye out for that theme. Intergenerational trauma as a spiritual subject. The sins of the fathers are visited quite literally upon their children. T'Challa suffers because of something that is omitted or not taken care of by his father. And Killmonger is very definitely also affected. So who is Killmonger? The villain of the movie, but is he also the victim? And I'd like you to answer these questions, please, for when we talk. In what ways is Killmonger both a villain and a victim? He's certainly portrayed as both within the movie. And what are his final words? Pay very close attention to his final words, because they in some ways encapsulate the entire movie. And I'd like you to really note what his final words are in the movie. How did he challenge Wakanda in a way that it needed to be challenged, even if he was not a very good ruler? In what ways did he challenge Wakanda in a way that it needed to be challenged? So answer those three questions, please, and bring them to our discussion together, if you would. Other things to watch for in the movie. I'd like you to pay attention to you can't ignore them, the women warriors, the brigade of women warriors who guard the king. In particular, I'm interested in them because we often look at the movie Wonder Woman as well in this class. And it's such a contrast to Wonder Woman, but both are supposedly the Amazons in some ways. It's not explicit in Black Panther, but it's interesting that in ancient Greek literature, the Amazons were supposed to be from Africa. And so you have two groups of warrior women, both in Wonder Woman and here. And Black Panther, I think, is more true to the sources than is Wonder Woman. Also, pay attention to the cinematography when Killmonger takes over the kingdom and the first time he sits on the throne, or one of the first times he sits on the throne, because the world is literally turned upside down and the camera angle is from upside down, which is giving us a visual clue as to what's going on in the kingdom. Other things to watch for, this is certainly a theological theme. This is a spirit visit to the ancestors. Just in terms of overall narrative, as in Big Fish and so many other movies, there's a father-son dynamic in this movie. T'Challa idolizes his father, who's now passed on, but he has to learn that his father was human and committed mistakes. And he has to learn to not only see that, but also forgive his father. And we see other relations like that in other movies. So that's it. I want you to watch some of these things as you watch this wonderful movie, and I hope you enjoy it, but do pay attention to the theological themes so that we can talk about them. Thanks a lot, and talk to you again soon. Bye for now.